Hey guys, tonight we travel back to a land of sun-drenched sands and monumental structures, a place where the very air hums with ancient secrets. You find yourself standing at the edge of the Nile, its waters shimmering under a sky so vast it makes your modern anxieties feel utterly insignificant. Palm trees sway gently, casting long, dancing shadows, and somewhere in the distance, you hear the faint, rhythmic clang of a sculptor's hammer against stone. You're about to delve into one of history's most endearing, yet baffling, obsessions: ancient Egypt's profound adoration for their feline friends. And let's be real, if you were actually there, you probably wouldn't survive the first week without accidentally offending a deity or getting caught in a chariot traffic jam. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know where you're tuning in from, and what time it is for you right now, down in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The story of humanity's rediscovery of ancient Egypt's unique relationship with cats begins, as many great historical narratives do, with a shovel and a lot of dust. Imagine it. The late 19th century, archaeologists, those intrepid souls with pith helmets and an insatiable curiosity, are systematically unearthing the sands of Egypt. They're looking for pharaohs, for gold, for grand temples, and yes, they find plenty of those. But amidst the monumental, the majestic, and the undeniably human, a recurring, furry theme starts to emerge. Everywhere you look, there they are, cats. Not just one or two, but a veritable avalanche of felines, immortalized in ways no other animal, perhaps no other living thing outside of royalty, ever was. You see them carved into steely, elegant, and poised, often with an almost regal bearing. You spot them depicted on tomb walls, sometimes beneath a chair, sometimes playfully swatting at a bird, always observing, always present. They appear in intricate bronze figures, small, perfect effigies designed to be held, perhaps even worshipped. It's like stumbling into a gallery where every other painting is a portrait of a cat, and you start to wonder, okay, what's the deal here? Is this some kind of ancient cat meme that just got way out of hand? The sheer volume of cat imagery was, and remains, astonishing. It wasn't just a casual appreciation. It was an all-encompassing cultural phenomenon. Think about it. Our modern obsession with cat videos, cat cafes, and those ridiculously expensive cat trees? Ancient Egypt basically invented that level of devotion, but they did it with stone, gold, and genuine religious fervor, not just internet points. When you compare it to, say, the Mesopotamians who were more into lions and bulls as symbols of power, or the Greeks who mostly saw domestic cats as useful for rodent control, if they even had them, which is a whole other debate, the Egyptian attitude was utterly unique. It was an enigma wrapped in linen bandages, purring softly. One of the earliest and most startling revelations of this deep cat connection came from an unlikely source: a massive burial ground in the ancient city of Beni Hassan, discovered in the late 1880s. Here, you don't find human mummies. Instead, you unearth literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of mummified cats. Yes, you heard that right. Not just a few beloved pets, but entire cat cemeteries. Imagine the archaeological team, initially expecting more human remains or perhaps a cache of papyri, instead digging up layer after layer of feline forms, carefully wrapped, often in tiny, custom-made coffins. It must have been a truly bewildering sight. One archaeologist reportedly described the scene as a mountain of cat mummies. And that's not hyperbole for once. It's the kind of discovery that makes you sit back, scratch your head, and wonder if you've stumbled into some kind of ancient, furry twilight zone. This wasn't just a few eccentric individuals. This was clearly a widespread, deeply ingrained practice. The sheer logistical effort required to mummify so many animals, often with the same care afforded to humans, speaks volumes. You can almost hear the collective gasp from the academic world. They really loved their cats. But why? That was the burning question. What elevated these agile, sometimes aloof, creatures to such an exalted status? It certainly wasn't just about their cuteness, though let's be honest, that probably helped. Early Egyptologists, like the famous Flinders Petrie, meticulous in their documentation, started piecing together the evidence. They observed that cats weren't just depicted, they were venerated. They saw how the animal appeared in contexts usually reserved for deities or royalty. It was clear that these weren't just pets in the modern sense. They were something far more profound. This wasn't like your grandma putting a sweater on her poodle. This was a civilization building entire necropolises for their feline companions. Historians still argue whether the initial domestication of the wild African cat, Felis libica, occurred purely out of practical necessity, or if there was an early, perhaps spiritual, connection from the start. Some scholars lean towards the mutual benefit theory. Cats ate rodents. Egyptians provided food and shelter. Others suggest there was an inherent admiration for the cat's grace, independence, and nocturnal habits that quickly transcended mere utility. It's a bit like trying to figure out if you loved your smartphone because it made your life easier, or if you just thought it looked cool from day one. Probably a bit of both, right? The unfolding enigma wasn't just about the sheer numbers of mummified cats or their artistic omnipresence. It was also about the lack of similar reverence for other animals, at least not to the same extent across all societal levels. While some animals, like the bull or the ibis, had specific sacred roles, the cat seemed to permeate every aspect of Egyptian life, from the humblest dwelling to the grandest temple. You don't see pharaohs being buried with mummified hippos, do you? Though, now that I think about it, a mummified hippo would be pretty metal. As more texts were translated, particularly the Book of the Dead and various hymns, the picture became clearer, yet simultaneously more mysterious. Cats weren't just symbols. They were seen as manifestations of divine power. This wasn't just a pet, it was a living, breathing connection to the cosmos. Imagine looking at your fluffy housemate and thinking, wow, you're basically a tiny, furry god. Please don't knock over that vase. It elevates the stakes considerably, doesn't it? A mainstream historical fact that underscores this unfolding enigma is the systematic collection and export of cat mummies in the late 19th century. In 1888, a ship carrying 180,000 mummified cats, excavated from Beni Hassan, arrived in Liverpool, England. This wasn't for display in museums, mind you. Oh no. Most of them were sold for a paltry sum of £3 13s9d per ton to be ground down and used as fertilizer for farmers' fields. Yes, you heard that correctly. Ancient Egyptian sacred cats, revered for millennia, ended up enriching British soil. It's a sobering, almost absurd, chapter in archaeological history, highlighting just how little the Western world initially understood the true depth of this ancient reverence, viewing them more as curious artifacts or even raw materials rather than sacred beings. It's like finding out someone used a priceless Van Gogh as a dartboard. Facepalm. This massive discovery, and the subsequent rather ignominious fate of many of the mummies, forced scholars to confront the scale of the Egyptian cat cult head-on. It wasn't just a quirky habit, it was foundational. The cat was everywhere, from the domestic hearth to the grandest religious ceremonies, hinting at a multifaceted relationship that was practical, spiritual, and deeply emotional. The enigma began to unfold not as a simple answer, but as a complex tapestry woven from daily life, religious belief, and an undeniable affection. The sheer, almost overwhelming, evidence began to paint a picture of a society that didn't just tolerate cats but actively cherished them. You find small, beautifully crafted cat collars, some even with tiny bells, suggesting that these creatures were adorned and valued as companions, not just vermin catchers. You see children's toys shaped like cats, indicating that this love was instilled from a young age. It was a cultural osmosis, where the cat was an ever-present, benevolent figure. The quirky tidbit that adds another layer to this unfolding mystery is the discovery of catnip residues in some ancient Egyptian tombs. While not definitively proven to be Felis catus-specific catnip, Nepentacataria, some researchers have identified plant remains that could have had similar psychoactive effects on felines. Imagine, if you will, the pharaoh's cat, chilling out after a long day of being worshipped, perhaps enjoying a little ancient Egyptian catnip. Oh, Mittens is having another vision. Quick, bring the papyrus and the incense. So, the enigma of ancient Egypt's feline adoration wasn't a sudden revelation but a gradual awakening. It started with the shovel hitting something unexpected, then another and another until the sheer weight of the evidence became undeniable. From the endless mummies to the pervasive art, from the casual depictions in daily life to the formal sacred imagery, it became clear that the Egyptians saw something truly special in these creatures. They weren't just pets. They were partners, protectors, and eventually profound manifestations of the divine. The question wasn't if they loved cats, but why they loved them with such unparalleled intensity. And that, my friends, is the mystery we're just beginning to scratch the surface of tonight. You're standing at the precipice of understanding a love affair that spanned millennia, a bond so strong it shaped an entire civilization. And it all started with a simple, elegant purr in the desert night. Imagine, if you will, the sun-drenched plains of ancient Egypt, thousands of years before the pyramids pierced the sky, back when life was raw, immediate, and utterly dependent on the whims of the mighty Nile. You are an early Egyptian farmer, your days dictated by the rhythm of the river and the relentless demands of the land. You trudge through the rich, dark soil, feeling the grit between your toes, the sweat beating on your brow as you coax life from the earth. Your hands are calloused, your back aches, but there's a quiet satisfaction in the rustle of growing stalks, the promise of the harvest. This is your life, your sustenance, your very survival. But with bounty comes a beastly problem, one that gnaws at your peace of mind and, quite literally, at your precious grain. You see, as humans settled down, gave up the nomadic hunt, and started cultivating crops, they inadvertently created an all-you-can-eat buffet for a host of unwelcome guests. Your carefully stored wheat, your barley, your lentils, the very foundation of your family's existence, became irresistible magnets for vermin. Think about it. You've spent months toiling under the relentless sun, planting seeds, irrigating, weeding, nurturing these vital crops. You've gathered the harvest, a monumental task in itself, and now it's stored in reed baskets, clay pots, or perhaps a rudimentary granary made of mud brick. The scent of drying grain, sweet and earthy, hangs heavy in the air. But it's not just you who smells it. The tiny, twitching noses of mice and rats are also picking up that delicious aroma. They scurry in the shadows, their eyes glinting in the dim light, their sharp teeth eager to gnaw through your hard-won sustenance. And it's not just the grain they ruin. These aren't just inconvenient little nibblers. They are agents of chaos and disease. Rodents contaminate food, spread illnesses that could decimate a family or an entire village, and their constant gnawing can weaken structures. Imagine the horror of waking to find half your winter stores ruined, or a child suddenly ill from something carried by these pervasive pests. It's a constant, exhausting battle, a silent war waged against an enemy that breeds faster than you can swat. The problem extends beyond mere rodents, too. Where there are mice and rats, there are often their predators. Snakes, some venomous, slither through the cracks in your home or among your stored provisions, seeking an easy meal. Scorpions, hidden in the cool darkness, pose another silent threat. Your home, meant to be a sanctuary, is a battleground, fraught with danger. And you, the farmer, are constantly on guard, devising traps, patching holes, trying to protect your family and your future. It must have felt a bit like trying to keep glitter out of your house after a crafting session. Utterly impossible, and it just kept spreading. Then, one day, a new shadow flickered at the edge of your vision. It wasn't a snake, nor a rat. It was something sleek, silent, and utterly mesmerizing. You might have seen them before, these lithe hunters of the wild, perhaps glimpsed them stalking prey in the distant reeds or along the fringes of the desert. This was Felis libica, the African wildcat, the true ancestor of our purring companions today. They were beautiful, formidable hunters, perfectly adapted to their environment. First, you're cautious. It's a wild animal after all. But as you watch, you notice something remarkable. This cat isn't just passing through. It's drawn, just like the rodents, to the abundance of your settlement. It's drawn to the very pests that plague you. With an almost supernatural stealth, it stalks. Its eyes, luminous and focused, pierce the gloom of your granary. A sudden silent pounce, a tiny squeak, and then silence. The mouse is gone. You might blink, rub your eyes. Did that really just happen? You watch again and again. The cat is a master of its craft, a living, breathing, purring pest control system, far more efficient than any trap you could devise, and certainly less prone to accidentally catching your own finger. It's like discovering you have a tiny, furry ninja on your payroll, and all it asks for is a place to nap and maybe a few appreciative head scratches. This wasn't an active domestication in the way you might train a dog to herd sheep. No, this was a partnership born of mutual benefit, a pragmatic alliance forged in the dusty granaries of the Nile. The cats, ever the pragmatists, quickly realized that where humans lived, there was an unprecedented concentration of their favorite prey. It was a veritable smorgasbord, a rodent buffet delivered right to their paws. Why bother hunting in the vast, arid wilderness when a perfectly good meal was scurrying around human settlements, practically begging to be caught? And you, the farmer, you quickly caught on too. This creature wasn't a threat. It was a godsend. You start to tolerate its presence. Perhaps you leave out a small bowl of milk or a scrap of meat, not as a pet, but as a silent thank you, a small incentive to keep your furry protector close. The cat, in turn, associates humans with an easy food source and a comfortable, sheltered place to raise its young. Over generations, the wildest instincts begin to soften. The fear of humans lessens. The cats become bolder, more accustomed to human presence, eventually even seeking it out. This slow, almost imperceptible dance of coexistence laid the groundwork for one of history's most enduring bonds. This is the mainstream historical fact that underpins the entire story. The domestication of the African wildcat Felis libica began not in Egypt, but in the Fertile Crescent roughly 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, coinciding with the rise of agriculture. While the earliest definitive archaeological evidence of a cat buried with a human comes from Cyprus, dating to around 9,500 years ago, a quirky tidbit that sometimes surprises people who think of Egypt as the absolute birthplace of cat-human relations. It was in Egypt where this bond truly blossomed and deepened, transforming from a purely utilitarian arrangement into something far more profound. Egypt became the melting pot where this practical partnership evolved into reverence. Historians still debate whether this was a conscious effort by humans to tame these wild creatures, or if the cats, ever the independent thinkers, simply decided that living near humans offered a pretty sweet deal. Shelter, warmth, and an endless supply of twitching, squeaking snacks. It was likely a bit of both, a symbiotic relationship that benefited both species. The cats got an easier life, and the humans got a silent, efficient army against the pests that threatened their very survival. Imagine the relief you must have felt. The rustling in the granary fades. The telltale gnawing sounds are replaced by the soft thump of a cat landing, or the quiet purr of contentment. Your grain stores are safer. Your home is cleaner. Your children are less susceptible to disease. The fear of a venomous snake slithering into your sleeping quarters diminishes. The cat wasn't just catching mice. It was providing peace of mind, a tangible improvement to daily life. It was probably the best investment a farmer ever made, costing nothing but a bit of tolerance and perhaps an occasional leftover. They probably thought, finally, a creature that understands the true meaning of a midnight snack raid, but from the other side, it's like having a furry, purring security system, but one that demands payment in head scratches and occasional tuna, if they had tuna back then. So, the humble beginnings of the cat's journey into the human heart were rooted in pure practicality. They weren't deities yet, not symbols of grace or fertility, but simply highly effective pest controllers. They were the silent guardians of the granary, the unsung heroes of the harvest. They earned their place, paw by silent paw, by demonstrating undeniable value. From this utilitarian foundation, from the simple, undeniable benefit they brought to daily life, would spring a love affair unlike any other in history. But first, they had to prove their worth one rat at a time. The seeds of adoration were sown not in temples, but in the dusty, grain-filled corners of ancient Egyptian homes. You're drifting deeper now, back to a time when the Nile's lifeblood flowed, not just through the land, but through the very pulse of Egyptian civilization. Imagine yourself, an early Egyptian farmer, standing by your mud brick home, the sun a warm blanket on your shoulders. You've toiled endlessly, your back aching from the rhythmic swing of the hoe, your hands calloused from planting barley and emmer wheat. The harvest, your family's lifeline, is finally gathered, piled high in woven baskets, then carefully stored in your granaries. Those sturdy, conical structures that the landscape like ancient, edible beehives. But here's the rub, the silent terror that gnaws at the edges of your hard-won peace. The rodents. Oh, those tiny, whiskered agents of chaos. Mice, rats, voles, they scurry and gnaw, tireless in their quest to devour your precious stores. You hear them at night, a faint scratching, a rustle that sends a shiver down your spine. Each nibble is a bite out of your family's future, a threat to their very survival. A good harvest means life. A compromised one means hunger, sickness, and despair. This isn't just about losing a snack. It's about losing everything. You've tried everything, haven't you? Traps made of clever reeds, noisy children chasing them with sticks, even the occasional, rather ineffective snake. But still, they come, a seemingly endless tide of furry destruction. Then one day something shifts. Perhaps it's a scrawny, stripy creature, eyes like emeralds, that wanders into your compound, drawn by the scent of tiny prey. Or maybe you've actively sought them out, hearing whispers from neighboring villages about these new, quiet allies. Suddenly, you observe. The scratching lessens. The telltale droppings diminish. Your sacks of grain, once riddled with holes, remain intact. And there it is, perched with an air of profound indifference on a cool stone, cleaning a paw, the very picture of feline satisfaction. The cat. This isn't just a pet. Not yet anyway. This is a walking, purring, highly efficient pest control system. Think of it like this. Before the cat, your granary was a buffet, open 24/7, no bouncer, no cover charge. After the cat, it's a 5-star restaurant with a very discerning, very deadly maitre d' who prefers his patrons al dente. The transformation is immediate and profound. These aren't just cute fluffballs. They are living, breathing, stealth bombers for your pantry. The mainstream historical fact here is undeniable. The domestication of cats in ancient Egypt was primarily driven by their unparalleled ability to control rodent populations. We're talking about a time when agriculture was the bedrock of society, and protecting harvests was paramount. Without effective pest control, entire communities could face famine. A single cat, or a small family of them, could decimate a rodent population that might otherwise consume a significant portion of a village's annual yield. This wasn't a luxury. It was a necessity, a matter of life and death, literally encoded into the very fabric of their burgeoning civilization. But it wasn't just the grain. Oh no, the benefits rippled out, touching every corner of daily life. Imagine your home, a simple, sun-baked structure. It's warm, it's dry, it's also a perfect haven for all sorts of less than desirable critters. Snakes, scorpions, even certain types of venomous spiders. These were constant threats in the ancient world. You lived close to nature, and nature, while bountiful, could also be deadly. A child playing on the floor might unwittingly disturb a sleeping viper. A family member reaching into a dark corner could find themselves face to face with a scorpion's barbed tail. The fear was real, palpable. Enter the cat, stage left, with an almost theatrical flair for dramatic pest removal. While their primary focus was often rodents, their predatory instincts extended to anything that moved quickly and was roughly their size or smaller. A snake slithering through the doorway? Cat would engage. A scorpion scuttling across the floor? A swift paw, a precise bite, and problem solved. They weren't just protecting food. They were protecting you. They were the furry, four-legged security guards of the homestead, silently patrolling, ever vigilant. You could actually sleep a little sounder knowing your feline companion was on duty. It's like having a tiny, furry ninja on your payroll, only instead of a salary, they prefer head scratches and the occasional fresh kill. This profound impact on family health cannot be overstated. Rodents, beyond just eating your food, are also notorious carriers of diseases. We're talking about nasty stuff. Plague, typhus, various fevers. In a world without modern medicine, where even a simple infection could be fatal, Anything that reduced exposure to disease vectors was a godsend. By keeping rodent populations in check, cats inadvertently became public health heroes. They were literally cleaning up the environment, making homes and villages safer, healthier places to live. It's a far cry from their modern role as Instagram influencers, but arguably far more impactful in their time. And this brings us to a slightly quirkier, fringe tidbit. Some Egyptologists suggest that the cat's keen senses and ability to detect subtle changes in their environment might have also made them early warning systems for natural phenomena. While perhaps not as dramatic as predicting an earthquake, it's plausible that a cat's sudden agitation or unusual behavior could have signaled the presence of a dangerous snake before it was seen, or even a change in the weather that might affect the harvest. Imagine your cat staring intently at a seemingly empty corner, only for you to discover a lurking scorpion. It's like they had built-in hazard detectors, little furry divining rods for danger. Of course, they were probably just staring at a dust bunny, but let's give them credit where credit is due. The sheer economic value of these animals was immense. Your entire year's labor, your family's very existence, hinged on those granaries. A single cat could save enough grain to feed a family for weeks, perhaps even months. This wasn't just about convenience. It was about preventing starvation. When you think about it, the cat was the ultimate return on investment. Minimal upkeep, maximum protection. No wonder they started to become more than just useful. They became cherished. They moved from the periphery of your life to the very heart of it. They weren't just a tool. They were a partner in survival. As the generations passed, this practical relationship deepened into something far more intimate. You'd see the kittens tumbling in the sun, their playful antics bringing a rare moment of levity to a hard life. You'd feel the comforting weight of a cat curled on your lap after a long day, its purr a low rumble of contentment. This wasn't just about their utility. It was about the companionship, the quiet presence, the way they made a house feel like a home. They were integrated into the rhythm of daily life, their sleek forms moving gracefully through the bustling household, always watchful, always there. The bond became so strong, so intertwined with their well-being, that historians still argue whether the initial reverence for cats stemmed purely from their practical benefits, or if there was an inherent appreciation for their enigmatic nature, their grace, and their independence that evolved alongside their utility. Was it purely transactional at first, or did the Egyptians, like cat lovers today, simply find them inherently adorable and fascinating, even before their pest control prowess became fully apparent? It's a bit of a chicken and egg question, isn't it? Did they love them because they were useful, or did their usefulness simply amplify an already growing affection for these captivating creatures? Regardless of the precise starting point, the fact remains. Cats transformed daily life in ancient Egypt from one of constant vigilance against tiny, destructive foes to one of relative security and improved health. They were the silent guardians, the furry protectors, making homes safer and more prosperous. They allowed families to thrive, to store their wealth in grain, and to live with a little less fear. And in a world where survival was often a daily struggle, that kind of peace of mind was priceless. You didn't just appreciate your cat, you revered it, for it truly was a keeper of your home and a guardian of your grain. And as you drift further into this story, you'll see how this practical adoration blossomed into something truly divine. So, you've seen how these clever little furballs, our ancient Egyptian ancestors' feline friends, started out as just really, really good pest control. You know, the kind of employee who not only does their job but also purrs when you give them a raise in sardine-flavored treats. They were the original Roomba, but with fur and a hunting instinct. They protected your grain, kept the creepy crawlies at bay, and generally made life a lot less itchy. But how do you go from super useful rodent exterminator to divine being worthy of worship? Ah, my friend, that's where things get really interesting, and where the story of Bastet, the ultimate cat goddess, truly begins to unfurl like a freshly unrolled papyrus scroll. Imagine, for a moment, the rhythm of ancient Egyptian life. The sun beats down, the Nile floods and recedes, and the cycles of planting and harvesting dictate everything. Your survival literally depends on your crops, and those crops are constantly under siege from mice and snakes. Then, these sleek, silent hunters arrive, not on command, but as if by magic, and they solve your problem. They're graceful, they're mysterious. They seem to possess an innate wisdom that humans often fumble for. It's not a huge leap, then, to start seeing something more than just an animal in their quiet efficiency. You begin to notice their watchful eyes, their almost regal bearing, and you start to think, maybe there's a little bit of the divine in that twitching ear, isn't there? This quiet admiration, this growing sense of gratitude, slowly but surely blossomed into something profoundly spiritual. And out of that fertile ground of practical benefit and burgeoning reverence, a deity began to take shape, Bastet. Now, Bastet didn't just pop up overnight, fully formed and ready for her close-up as the perfect goddess. Like many ancient Egyptian deities, her story has layers, like a particularly complex onion, but thankfully, a much more pleasant-smelling one. Originally, Bastet was often depicted as a fierce lioness, much like her more aggressive counterpart, Sekhmet, the goddess of war and destruction. You can almost hear the ancient Egyptians saying, "Yeah, cats are cool, but a lion? That's power, baby." It was a different vibe, a more untamed, primal energy. But over centuries, as the relationship between Egyptians and their domestic cats deepened, Bastet's imagery softened. She shed some of that raw, untamed lioness ferocity and began to embody the gentler, more nurturing, and protective aspects of the feline. She transformed, evolving into the beloved, elegant figure of a woman with the head of a domestic cat, or sometimes, simply as a domestic cat herself. This mainstream historical fact, the evolution of Bastet from a lioness to a domestic cat goddess, beautifully illustrates the shifting perception of felines within Egyptian society. It's like she went from being the tough bouncer at the club to the friendly, welcoming host who still knows how to handle trouble if it shows up. So why the domestic cat? Why not, say, a particularly fluffy rabbit? Well, cats brought specific, tangible benefits that resonated deeply with the Egyptian worldview. They were protectors. They kept homes safe from vermin, yes, but also, in the Egyptian mind, from evil spirits and bad luck. Bastet, therefore, became the embodiment of protection, a guardian of the home, the family, and especially women and children. She was seen as a benevolent force, warding off disease and malevolent influences, much like her earthly counterparts kept the actual pests away. Imagine trying to sleep soundly knowing there's a rat the size of a small dog lurking in your pantry. Now imagine a purring cat curled at your feet. Instant calm, right? Bastet was that feeling magnified to a divine scale. But Bastet wasn't just about protection. She was also the goddess of joy, music, dance, and fertility. Think about it. Cats are playful. They seem to enjoy life with an uninhibited glee, chasing sunbeams and batting at imaginary foes. They also reproduce with impressive efficiency, which, in an ancient society reliant on large families for labor and continuity, was a highly valued trait. Bastet, therefore, perfectly personified these aspects too. Her festivals were legendary, full of music, dancing, and revelry. You can almost smell the incense and hear the sistra, a type of rattle used in religious ceremonies, as pilgrims made their way to her main cult center, Bastet, a city that was practically a giant cat sanctuary. It was probably the ancient equivalent of a cat convention, but with way more spiritual significance and significantly fewer grumpy-looking cat owners. This blend of practical benefit and divine association made Bastet incredibly popular. Her worship was widespread, permeating every level of Egyptian society. From the lowliest farmer to the grandest pharaoh, everyone recognized the power and benevolence of Bastet. She wasn't just a goddess. She was the goddess who truly personified the Egyptian love for cats. She was the reason you'd go to bed feeling safe, knowing your family was blessed and your home was protected. She represented the warmth of the sun on a cat sleeping peacefully, the gentle purr that soothes anxieties, and the fierce loyalty of a creature defending its territory. Interestingly, there's a quirky tidbit about Bastet's association with Oxyrhynchus fish. While she's primarily known for cats, some ancient texts and depictions show her with this specific fish, possibly linking her to the Nile's bounty and the life-giving waters, further cementing her role as a bringer of abundance. It's like finding out your favorite superhero, known for flying, also has a secret hobby as a champion competitive eater of obscure fish. You just nod and say, well, that's Bastet for you. Now, historians still argue whether Bastet's rise to prominence caused the intense adoration for cats, or if she simply reflected an already existing, deep-seated affection. Was she the catalyst or the mirror? It's a bit of a chicken and egg scenario, isn't it? Did the Egyptians create Bastet because they loved cats so much? Or did Bastet's divine status elevate cats to an unparalleled level of reverence? What is clear, however, is that her existence solidified the cat's unique position in Egyptian culture. She provided a divine framework for their love, giving it purpose and spiritual weight. When you see depictions of Bastet, whether as a cat-headed woman or a full feline, you're not just looking at a goddess. You're looking at the embodiment of everything the Egyptians cherished about their cats. Her serene expression, her elegant posture, her watchful eyes, they all speak to the qualities they saw in their beloved felines. Grace, mystery, protection, and a touch of independent spirit. She wasn't just a deity with cats. She was the spirit of the cat, divine and earthly, intertwined. She was the purr that echoed through the temples, the silent guardian of every Egyptian home, and the joyous spirit of a people who truly understood the magic of a feline friend. She took the simple, practical relationship and elevated it to the heavens, making every domestic cat a tiny, living piece of the divine. And that, my friend, is how the humble pest controller became a living god, all thanks to Bastet's powerful embrace. You drift now, further into the warm, sun-drenched haze of ancient Egypt, leaving the grand temples and bustling festivals of Bastet behind for a moment. Instead, you find yourself stepping into the quiet, cool shadows of a typical Egyptian home. It's a modest dwelling, perhaps with mud brick walls and a flat roof where the family sleeps on hot nights. And there, curled on a woven mat by the hearth, or perhaps perched regally on a storage jar, is the household cat. This isn't just a pet, mind you. Oh no, this isn't your grumpy tabby demanding breakfast or your fluffy Persian judging your life choices from atop the bookshelf. This, my friend, is something far, far more profound. You see, for the ancient Egyptians, these sleek, enigmatic creatures weren't merely symbols of the divine, or even favored companions of a goddess. They were, in a very real and tangible sense, living gods, or more accurately, earthly embodiments, vessels, if you will, through which sacred power flowed directly into the lives of the people who shared their homes. Imagine waking up every morning not just to a meow, but to the soft rustle of divinity stretching out beside you. It's a bit like finding out your Wi-Fi router is actually a direct line to the cosmos, only furrier and less prone to buffering. This wasn't some abstract theological concept reserved for priests in hushed temple chambers. This was an everyday reality, woven into the very fabric of their existence. You didn't just own a cat, you hosted a fragment of the divine. The very presence of a cat in your home was considered a blessing, a continuous conduit of good fortune and spiritual protection. Think about that for a moment. Your cat wasn't just chasing mice. It was actively repelling malevolent spirits with every flick of its tail. Your cat wasn't just napping. It was recharging the spiritual batteries of your entire household. No wonder they spoiled them rotten. The Egyptians believed that the essence of Bastet, the benevolent feline goddess you learned about, could reside within these earthly cats. It was a form of immanence, where the divine was not distant but intimately present. When you looked into the amber eyes of your household cat, you weren't just seeing a creature of instinct. You were glimpsing a flicker of cosmic wisdom, a reflection of Bastet's protective gaze. This elevated the cat from mere animal to a sacred entity, worthy of profound reverence and meticulous care. It meant that every purr wasn't just a sign of contentment, but perhaps a soft, vibrational blessing, resonating through your home and warding off ill will. It's like having a tiny, furry, purring oracle on your couch. Only this one mostly just tells you it's hungry. This belief in cats as living manifestations of the divine stemmed from several observations and philosophical tenets. Firstly, their natural attributes were seen as inherently sacred. Their nocturnal vision, allowing them to navigate the darkness with ease, was associated with the sun god Ra's journey through the underworld at night, and with the ability to perceive hidden truths. Their incredible agility and grace, their silent movements, their predatory prowess, all these qualities seem to transcend the mundane, hinting at a power beyond ordinary understanding. They were efficient hunters, yes, but their hunting wasn't just for food. It was seen as a divine act of maintaining cosmic order, of battling the forces of chaos, represented by pests and snakes. Secondly, the Egyptians had a holistic view of the cosmos, where the divine permeated all aspects of life, and where animals often served as earthly representations or even incarnations of gods. While many animals were sacred to specific deities, the ibis for Thoth, the falcon for Horus, the cat held a uniquely intimate position due to its domesticity. It was a wild spirit brought into the home, yet retaining its mystique and independence. This paradox made it even more compelling as a divine vessel. It was untamed power, contained and benevolent, within your own four walls. Mainstream historical fact: it's well documented that the Egyptians believed in the concept of Ka, a life force or spirit that resided within individuals, including animals, and which could continue to exist after death. This belief undoubtedly contributed to the idea that a cat possessed a tangible, spiritual essence, making it a suitable vessel for divine power. It wasn't just a body. It was a living, breathing entity imbued with a spiritual dimension that connected it to the gods. This perception meant that the daily care of a cat wasn't just a chore. It was a sacred duty. You fed your cat not just to sate its hunger, but to nourish a divine presence within your home. You provided it comfort and safety not just out of affection, but to ensure the continued flow of blessings. You would never dream of mistreating a cat, for to do so would be to offend the very gods themselves, inviting misfortune upon your household. Imagine the pressure. It makes modern pet parenting seem like a walk in the park. Though, let's be honest, some of us already treat our pets like tiny, demanding deities. The Egyptians observed their cats' behaviors with immense reverence, often interpreting their actions as omens or signs from the gods. A cat's sudden purring might be seen as a sign of approval, a divine blessing bestowed upon your endeavors. A cat's watchful gaze might be interpreted as a warning against unseen dangers, or an indication of good fortune to come. They were living barometers of divine favor, their moods and movements subtly guiding the understanding of the household. It wasn't unlike how some people today read horoscopes. Only instead of a newspaper column, you had a furry, purring, highly opinionated creature giving you daily updates. Quirky or fringe tidbit. While Bastet was the primary feline deity, some less common beliefs suggest that certain black cats were thought to be particularly potent vessels, possibly associated with the darker, more mysterious aspects of the divine, or even with protection against malevolent magic. Their ability to move unseen in the shadows, their piercing eyes, and their often independent nature lent themselves to an aura of profound, albeit sometimes unsettling, power. So, if you had a void cat back then, you weren't just blessed. You were practically living in a fortress of spiritual might. This deep-seated belief also manifested in the way they viewed a cat's death. But we'll get to that. For now, focus on the living, breathing miracle that was the household cat. It was a constant reminder of the gods' benevolence, a tangible link between the earthly and the divine. This wasn't just about worshipping Bastet. It was about worshipping the very essence of Bastet as it manifested in the sleek form of your domestic feline. Scholarly debate. Historians still argue whether every individual cat was considered a literal incarnation of Bastet, or if they were seen more as highly favored, sacred animals through which her spirit could occasionally manifest. Was it a constant, direct embodiment, or more of a potential, intermittent connection? The nuances of this belief are complex, but what remains undeniable is the profound respect and adoration shown to these animals, far beyond mere affection for a pet. It's safe to say they were revered as something truly special, regardless of the precise theological definition. Their connection to the sun god Ra also reinforced their divine status. Ra, in his daily journey, battled the forces of chaos, most notably the serpent Apep. Cats, with their innate ability to hunt and kill snakes, were seen as miniature Ra figures, protectors against the very embodiment of chaos. Thus, a cat in the home wasn't just keeping vermin at bay. It was actively participating in the cosmic struggle between order and disorder, light and darkness. They were tiny, furry superheroes, battling evil with every pounce. Imagine the peace of mind this brought. In a world full of uncertainties, where the Nile's flood determined your survival and unseen forces were believed to influence every aspect of life, having a living God purring on your lap must have been incredibly comforting. It was a direct line, a personal blessing, a constant source of positive energy. You didn't need to go to a temple to feel close to the divine. You just needed to stroke the soft fur of your cat. This profound perception of cats as living embodiments of sacred power explains the unparalleled adoration and special treatment they received. It wasn't just love. It was reverence. It wasn't just care. It was worship. Every interaction was imbued with spiritual significance, transforming the mundane act of feeding a pet into a sacred offering, and the simple act of petting into a moment of divine communion. It's a reminder that sometimes, the most sacred things are found not in grand monuments, but in the gentle purr of a creature sharing your home. And with that thought, you can let your mind drift, just a little bit, into the quiet, sacred space where ancient Egyptians found their gods in the eyes of their beloved cats. You stand within the cool, mud brick walls of an ancient Egyptian home, the late afternoon sun casting long, lazy shadows across the reed mats on the floor. The air, thick with the scent of baking bread and dried herbs, hums with a quiet energy. And there, curled on a sun-drenched sill, is your household cat, a sleek, elegant creature, half asleep, one ear twitching imperceptibly at the distant chirping of crickets. You might think this is just a pet, a fluffy companion, but to the ancient Egyptians, this wasn't merely a furry friend. Oh no, this was your personal, four-legged guardian. A living amulet, a silent sentinel against the unseen terrors of the night and the misfortunes of the day. Imagine, if you will, the world outside this cozy dwelling. It's a world teeming with life, yes, but also with dangers. Scorpions lurk in the cracks, snakes slither through the fields, and the very air, so they believed, was thick with malevolent spirits, mischievous demons, and the ever-present threat of ill fortune. You, a diligent farmer or a meticulous artisan, can protect your physical self with tools and vigilance, but what about the whispers in the dark, the unseen forces that could blight your crops, sicken your children, or drain your prosperity? This is where your feline friend stepped in, paws first, purring all the way. The Egyptians believed, with an unwavering conviction that would make even the most dedicated conspiracy theorist nod in approval, that cats possessed a unique sixth sense, an innate ability to perceive the spiritual realm. Those mesmerizing, slitted eyes, so often narrowed in sleepy contentment, were thought to see beyond the veil, to detect the invisible entities that sought to bring harm. When your cat suddenly fixated on an empty corner, its tail twitching, its ears swiveling, you didn't just think, oh, it's probably a dust bunny. No, you thought, ah, my little warrior is warding off a lingering specter, perhaps a grumpy ghost who just lost its favorite papyrus scroll. It was a comforting thought, wasn't it? Knowing that while you were blissfully snoring, your furry watchman was on duty, silently battling the boogeymen. This wasn't just about general spiritual protection, mind you. Cats were specifically revered for their prowess against snakes, particularly the venomous cobras that were a very real and terrifying threat to anyone living near the Nile. You know how your cat today might bring you a dead mouse as a gift? Well, imagine waking up to find a neatly dispatched cobra on your doorstep. That wasn't just pest control. That was a divine intervention, a clear sign that the gods were smiling upon your household, using your cat as their instrument of protection. It was like having a tiny, furry ninja living in your house. But instead of throwing stars, it used its lightning-fast reflexes and utterly charming indifference. Mainstream historical fact alert. The Egyptians indeed valued cats immensely for their ability to control vermin and dangerous reptiles, a practical benefit that seamlessly blended into their spiritual reverence. This practical protection was seen as a manifestation of divine favor, elevating the cat from mere predator to sacred guardian. But the blessings didn't stop there. Oh no, the cat was also a harbinger of good fortune, a living conduit for prosperity and abundance. Think about it. A healthy, thriving cat in your home was a sign that your household was blessed. It meant your grain stores were safe from rodents, ensuring a steady food supply. It meant your family was healthy, free from the diseases that rodents could carry. And beyond these tangible benefits, there was a deeper, mystical connection. The cat, particularly through its association with Bastet, the goddess of fertility and protection, was believed to infuse the home with positive energy. A purring cat on your lap wasn't just cozy. It was believed to be a gentle hum of prosperity, an energetic vibration drawing good things to you. You might find yourself wondering, if you were an ancient Egyptian, how to maximize these blessings. Perhaps you'd leave out extra bowls of milk or offer the choicest scraps of fish. You'd certainly never dream of harming your cat, not just because it was illegal. We'll get to that later. Trust me, the penalties were not for the faint of heart, but because it would be like kicking a good luck charm. Who does that? Only someone who wants a lifetime of stubbed toes and burnt bread. The Egyptians believed that a happy, well-cared-for cat would bring fertility to the household, not just in terms of healthy children, but also in the abundance of crops and livestock. It was as if the cat, by its very presence, ensured the flow of life and prosperity. You wanted a bountiful harvest? Make sure your cat was well-fed and content. You wanted your family to grow? Treat your feline with the utmost respect. It was a holistic view, where the health and happiness of the cat mirrored the health and happiness of the entire household. It's a bit like us believing that if we water our houseplants, we'll suddenly get a promotion. Except for them, it actually worked, or at least they believed it did, which is half the battle, right? This belief in the cat's protective and fortune-bringing powers wasn't just confined to the living. You'd find amulets depicting cats, often with protective symbols, worn by both the living and placed in tombs. These charms were meant to extend the cat's safeguarding influence beyond the physical presence, offering continuous protection even when the cat wasn't physically there, or for the deceased in the afterlife. It was like having a tiny, portable security system, but way cuter and with less annoying beeping. There's a quirky tidbit here. Some fringe theories suggest that the ancient Egyptians even interpreted the sounds a cat made as omens. A sudden sneeze from your cat, for instance, might have been considered a particularly auspicious sign, indicating that a malevolent spirit had just been forcefully expelled from the home, or that good fortune was about to literally sneeze its way into your life. Imagine that your cat just had a little tickle in its nose, and suddenly you're expecting a bonus and a new chariot. Talk about low-effort prophecy. Historians still argue whether the cat's role as a spiritual protector truly evolved organically from its practical pest-controlling abilities, or if there was an earlier, perhaps more abstract, reverence that simply found a perfect earthly manifestation in the feline form. Was it the chicken or the egg? Did they first see the cat kill a snake and think, "Wow, this creature is powerful"? Or did they already sense a divine connection and then marvel at its practical prowess as confirmation? Regardless, the two aspects became inextricably linked, woven into the very fabric of Egyptian daily life and belief. So, as you watch your ancient Egyptian cat stretch, a slow, languid movement that seems to defy gravity for a moment before it settles back into its sunbeam nap, you understand that this creature is more than just a companion. It is a living shield, a purring good luck charm, a silent guardian against the unseen, a constant source of blessings. Its presence fills your home not just with warmth and a delightful sense of feline superiority, but with an invisible aura of safety and prosperity. And as the sun dips lower, casting the room in a gentle twilight, you feel a deep, abiding gratitude for this magnificent creature, knowing that while you sleep, it will stand watch, its very existence a whisper of protection and a promise of fortune. Now imagine a quiet, somber scene in ancient Egypt. A beloved feline, perhaps a sleek, ginger tabby you've known for years, or a majestic temple cat with fur like polished obsidian, has drawn its last breath. The playful pounce is still, the purr silenced. For you, living in this ancient world, this isn't just the loss of a pet. It's the passing of a cherished family member, a divine messenger, a protector. And just as you would prepare a human loved one for their journey beyond, you prepare your cat. Because in ancient Egypt, death wasn't an end, but a transition, and every soul, even a furry one, deserved safe passage. You understand that for the cat's spirit, it's Ka and Ba. To reunite and live eternally, it needs a physical vessel. So, the meticulous, almost obsessive ritual of mummification begins. This wasn't some casual, do-it-yourself project you'd find on a dusty papyrus scroll, like a DIY guide to building a pyramid, though that would be quite the read, wouldn't it? No, this was a specialized, sacred process, often performed by skilled embalmers, sometimes even priests, especially for those cats destined for temple burials or grander afterlives. First, the body is carefully cleaned, perhaps bathed in fragrant oils, a final, tender touch. Then comes the crucial step, desiccation. You watch as the cat's body is gently packed and covered with natron salt, a naturally occurring compound from dry lake beds, a mixture of sodium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate. Think of it like a giant, very effective, all-natural kitty litter that also happens to preserve bodies. This substance, with its almost magical drying properties, slowly draws out all the moisture from the tissues over a period of perhaps 40 to 70 days. This is the part where you'd probably want to hold your nose if you weren't so devoutly focused on the spiritual significance. It's a long wait, longer than waiting for your favorite show to drop a new season, but infinitely more important. Unlike human mummification, where internal organs were almost always meticulously removed and placed in canopic jars, the mummification of cats varied. For some, especially the more humble household pets, the organs might remain simply dried within the body. For others, particularly the more sacred temple cats or those intended as grand offerings, a small incision might be made, and the organs removed, dried, and then sometimes replaced within the body cavity, often packed with fragrant resins or linen to restore the natural shape. You can almost smell the earthy scent of the natron mixing with the sweet, almost medicinal aroma of the resins. It's a surprisingly complex process for something so small, isn't it? Think about how much effort you put into folding laundry. Now imagine doing that, but for eternity and with a cat. Once thoroughly desiccated and treated, the cat's body is ready for the wrapping phase, which is where things get truly artistic. You see skilled hands meticulously layering strips of linen, sometimes hundreds of feet of it, around the tiny form. Each strip is carefully wound, often soaked in warm resin or beeswax, which acts as a glue, sealing the layers and hardening to create a protective shell. It's like wrapping a very, very important and slightly stiff present. The layers are so precise, so tight, that they often recreate the cat's natural form, sometimes even exaggerating its features, giving it a sleek, stylized appearance. And then come the adornments. Oh, the adornments! Some mummified cats were given painted faces on their linen casings, with almond-shaped eyes and delicate whiskers, often outlined in black coal, just like the Egyptians themselves wore. Others were placed in miniature, exquisite sarcophagi, tiny wooden coffins carved and painted with the cat's likeness or with images of Bastet. You might even see tiny amulets tucked between the layers of linen, offerings meant to protect the cat in the afterlife, perhaps a scarab beetle for rebirth, or the Eye of Horus for protection. It's a level of detail that makes you wonder if they secretly hoped the cat would wake up, stretch, and then immediately demand to know where its favorite sunbeam was. This practice wasn't just for individual, cherished pets. No, the scale of cat mummification was truly staggering. One mainstream historical fact that will absolutely blow your mind is the discovery of massive cat cemeteries, like the one at Beni Hassan, where archaeologists unearthed an estimated 300,000 mummified cats. Yes, you heard that right, 300,000. Imagine the sheer logistics. It suggests a highly organized system, not just of mummification, but also of breeding cats specifically for this purpose, a kind of sacred industry. And this brings us to a point that historians still debate whether all these mummified cats were beloved family pets or if many were bred specifically as votive offerings to the gods, particularly Bastet. Were they all genuinely mourned, or were some simply a means to an end, a way for devout Egyptians to express their piety and seek divine favor? You can almost hear the hushed whispers of scholars arguing over ancient papyri, trying to decipher the true intentions behind every wrapped feline. It's a complex question, isn't it? Did a family truly grieve for every single one of those 300,000 cats? Or was it more of a religious transaction? Perhaps it was a bit of both, a spectrum of devotion. Regardless of their origin, each mummified cat was believed to embark on a journey beyond. For the cherished household pet, the hope was that its spirit would accompany its human family into the field of reeds, the Egyptian paradise, a place of eternal bliss, abundant harvests, and endless happiness. You can imagine the scene. A human spirit, finally at peace, surrounded by fields of grain, and then a soft purr, and there's your fluffy companion, ready to chase ethereal mice across the celestial plains. Perhaps they thought, finally, a place where the sunbeams are always just right, and the food bowl is never empty. For the cats mummified as offerings, their journey was perhaps more direct, a conduit to the divine. They were interred in vast catacombs, sometimes alongside other animals, sometimes in dedicated chambers. Their presence was meant to please Bastet, to ensure her continued blessings of fertility, protection, and good fortune for the living. It was a tangible prayer, a physical manifestation of devotion, a way to keep the goddess happy and purring, metaphorically speaking. One quirky or fringe tidbit you might find fascinating is that some cat mummies, when carefully unwrapped by modern archaeologists, have revealed not just one cat, but sometimes multiple kittens wrapped together, or even a cat and a mouse or a cat and a bird, wrapped as a single offering. Was this a symbolic gesture, a representation of the food chain, or perhaps a final, ironic meal for the journey? The ancient Egyptians certainly had a flair for the dramatic and a sense of humor that sometimes transcends millennia. Maybe the ancient Egyptians believed that even in the afterlife, a cat would still be judging your outfit choices, or at least your choice of snack. So, as you walk through the cool, quiet stone corridors of an ancient Egyptian tomb or catacomb, and you see the rows upon rows of carefully wrapped feline forms, you're not just looking at preserved animals. You are witnessing a profound expression of belief, a desire to defy death, to maintain connection, and to honor the divine. Each mummified cat is a testament to an unparalleled bond, a silent promise that love, even for a creature of 4 paws and a swishing tail, could truly last for eternity. The journey beyond was not just for humans. It was for every creature deemed worthy of the gods' attention, and few were as worthy as the adored Egyptian cat. You wake up, a gentle sliver of dawn light filtering through the papyrus screens of your home, painting the room in soft, warm hues. A familiar, contented purr is usually the first sound you register. A tiny motor vibrating against your side or somewhere nearby. A furry sentinel ensuring your morning begins with maximum adorable pressure. But today, the silence is different. It's not the quiet peace of a sleeping house. It's an absence, a hollow echo where a vibrant presence should be. A cold dread coils in your stomach as you push aside your linen sheet and glance towards the spot where your beloved Bastet on paws, your cherished feline companion, usually greets the day with an imperious stretch and a demand for breakfast. Your eyes sweep the room, searching. Under the bed? No. Sunning herself by the window? Not there. A frantic energy begins to bubble beneath your calm exterior. A primal instinct screaming that something is terribly, irrevocably wrong. You call out, a soft, coaxing murmur, then louder, a touch of panic creeping into your voice. Nothing. No flick of an ear, no swish of a tail, no soft pat of paws against the cool tile. And then you see her, curled in her favorite sunbeam, still and perfect, as if caught in a moment of eternal slumber. But the gentle rise and fall of her chest, the rhythmic purr that was her very essence, are gone. The world tilts, the air seems to thicken, and a profound, aching sorrow washes over you, deeper than you ever thought possible for a creature with 4 legs and an attitude problem. You kneel, your hand trembling as you reach out to stroke her soft fur, still warm from the lingering sun. It's the kind of gut-punch grief that leaves you winded, feeling like someone just stole a piece of your very soul. And in ancient Egypt, this wasn't just a fleeting moment of sadness. It was a cataclysm, a profound family loss that mirrored the passing of a human loved one. The immediate, outward manifestation of this crushing grief for your feline friend was a truly striking, and perhaps, for modern sensibilities, a rather dramatic one. You would shave off your eyebrows. Yes, you heard that right. Not just a trim, not a little shaping, but a complete clean shave of both your eyebrows. Imagine the morning after, looking in a polished copper mirror, your face suddenly devoid of its usual expressive arches. It's a bold look, to say the least, and certainly makes a statement. "Oh, you've lost your cat, have you?" Your neighbor might ask, not even needing to hear the words, just seeing your suddenly naked brow. It's a very specific, visible sign of mourning, a public declaration of your profound sorrow. And let's be honest, it's probably one of those fashion trends that you hope doesn't make a comeback anytime soon, because who needs that kind of commitment to grief? This isn't just some quirky tidbit, either. It's a widely attested mainstream historical fact. The Greek historian Herodotus, writing centuries later, observed this very practice, noting that when a house cat died, all the inhabitants of the house shaved their eyebrows. If it was a dog, they shaved their entire body. So, while losing a dog was clearly a full-body commitment to grief, losing a cat was a facial one, signifying its unique and elevated status. It was a tangible, visible sign of your deep emotional connection, a ritualistic act that allowed you to physically embody your grief. You weren't just sad. You were visibly sad, and everyone knew why. The silence in your home stretches, amplifying the emptiness. You missed the soft thud of her landing from a jump, the gentle, insistent headbutt against your leg, the way she'd weave through your ankles, threatening to trip you at the most inconvenient moments. You miss her discerning gaze, her quiet judgment from a sun-drenched perch. This wasn't just an animal. This was a member of your family, a protector of your grain, a bringer of good fortune, and, let's be honest, a tiny, furry dictator who ruled your home with an iron paw. Losing her was like losing a piece of your daily rhythm, a constant, comforting presence that had woven itself into the very fabric of your existence. The wails would begin, a lamentation not just from you, but from your entire household. The family would gather, and the air would fill with expressions of sorrow, much like mourning a human relative. This wasn't merely a pet who had passed. It was a living embodiment of the divine, a creature imbued with the spirit of Bastet herself. Its death was seen not just as a biological end, but as a temporary separation from a sacred presence. Some scholars contend whether the public display of grief, particularly the eyebrow shaving, was as universally adopted across all social strata as the historical accounts suggest, or if it was more prominent among the wealthier classes who could afford more elaborate mourning rituals and mummification. But regardless of your social standing, the internal grief was undeniably real. You would spend days, sometimes weeks, in a period of formal mourning. Your usual daily activities would be curtailed. The vibrant sounds of laughter and music might be hushed, replaced by a somber quietude. It was a time for reflection, for honoring the life that had been, and for preparing the beloved feline for its final journey. You'd likely forego certain foods, perhaps even fast for a period, as a sign of respect and sorrow. The house would feel desolate, the usual playful chaos replaced by a profound stillness. You'd find yourself staring at empty spaces, half expecting to see her curled up there, or to hear her distinctive, slightly demanding meow for attention. "Just 5 more minutes of petting, human," she seemed to say, even in your memories. The care you would take in preparing her body for the afterlife was meticulous, a testament to the depth of your devotion. While the detailed process of mummification itself falls under another discussion, the act of preparing your cat for this sacred journey was an integral part of your mourning. It was a final act of love, ensuring that your beloved companion would transition safely to the field of reeds, perhaps even to continue her divine service alongside Bastet. You would carefully wrap her in fine linen, perhaps with small amulets placed within the layers, symbols of protection and good fortune for her journey. It was a bittersweet task, your hands performing the ancient rituals while your heart ached with every fold of cloth. The community, too, understood the gravity of your loss. Neighbors would offer condolences, not with a dismissive, "it was just a cat," but with genuine empathy. They understood the sacred bond, the spiritual significance, and the sheer emptiness a household felt when its feline guardian departed. It was a shared cultural understanding, a collective acknowledgement that these creatures were far more than simple animals. They were family, protectors, and conduits to the divine. It's like when your favorite local coffee shop closes down, and everyone in the neighborhood feels that little pang of loss. Except imagine that coffee shop also kept your grain safe and was possibly a god. A bit more intense, right? This profound grief wasn't just about the practical loss of a pest controller. It was about the spiritual void left behind. Egyptians believed that their cats carried a spark of the divine, that they were living manifestations of Bastet's grace and protection. When your cat died, it wasn't just a pet. It was a temporary severance from a direct link to the goddess herself. You mourned the loss of that divine presence in your home, the protective aura, the good fortune it was believed to bestow. You yearned for the comfort of its purr, not just because it was soothing, but because it was a tiny, rhythmic affirmation of the sacred in your everyday life. The sorrow was a testament to the cat's elevated status, a creature so beloved, so revered, that its passing warranted rituals of mourning that, in other cultures, were reserved exclusively for humans. Your cat wasn't just a fluffy housemate. It was a tiny, whiskered pharaoh of your heart, and its departure left a throne-sized hole. You've seen the love, felt the reverence, understood the very fabric of Egyptian society woven with feline threads. But what happens when adoration isn't enough? What happens when a deep, abiding respect for a creature transcends mere affection and becomes enshrined in the very bedrock of a civilization's legal code? This, my sleepy traveler, is where the purring reverence gives way to the ironclad grip of sacred law, where the soft paw of the cat leaves an indelible print not just on the heart, but on the very scales of justice. Imagine, if you will, strolling through the bustling streets of ancient Memphis. The sun beats down, the air is thick with the scent of spices, dust, and, well, probably a lot of cats. You're minding your own business, perhaps haggling for a new clay pot, when suddenly, a scrawny, mischievous street cat darts across your path. Your foot, perhaps a little too eager, connects with it. Not a kick, mind you, just a clumsy stumble. A brush, a mere accidental nudge. In most places, in most times, you might mutter an apology to the air, check if the cat is okay, which it likely would be, given their liquid grace, and move on. But here, in ancient Egypt, you would very quickly find yourself in a world of profound, immediate, and utterly terrifying trouble. Because here, the life of a cat wasn't just valued. It was legally sacrosanct. The protection afforded to these whiskered wonders wasn't merely a polite suggestion or a societal norm. It was law written in stone, enforced with a severity that would make modern animal rights activists both weep with joy and faint with shock. We're talking about a legal system where harming a cat, even unintentionally, could, and often would, cost you your life. Yes, you heard that right. Your life. For a clumsy foot. It makes you think twice about that morning stretch, doesn't it? One wrong move, and suddenly your next appointment is with the executioner, not the baker. This wasn't some fringe rule, mind you, tucked away in a dusty scroll that nobody bothered to read. Oh no, this was a core tenet of their justice system, widely known and deeply feared. The mainstream historical fact here is strikingly clear. The killing of a cat, whether accidental or intentional, was punishable by death. And it wasn't a maybe if someone sees you kind of law. The public was fiercely protective of their felines, and swift, brutal justice was often meted out by an angry mob long before any official court could convene. You could almost hear the collective gasp of the crowd, followed by a low, guttural growl that wasn't coming from a cat. Imagine the sheer societal pressure. You're not just avoiding animal cruelty, you're avoiding a public lynching. It paints a rather vivid picture of just how deeply ingrained this reverence was, doesn't it? It wasn't just about the law. It was about a collective spiritual and cultural understanding. These animals were extensions of the divine, living embodiments of their gods, and to harm one was an act of profound sacrilege, not just a petty crime. It was like spitting in the face of Bastet herself. And trust me, you did not want to be on Bastet's bad side. She was cool, but she had limits. The severity of these laws extended beyond direct harm. There were even prohibitions against exporting cats from Egypt. You couldn't just pack up your beloved Fluffy and sail off to Greece for a holiday. If you tried, you'd face severe penalties. The Egyptians were so possessive of their feline population that there are even accounts of them attempting to retrieve cats that had been smuggled out of the country. Think about that for a second. They'd send out recovery teams for cats. It makes you wonder if they had a specialized feline fugitive retrieval unit, complete with little cat-sized chariots. It's a quirky thought, isn't it? But it speaks volumes about their commitment. They weren't just protecting cats. They were protecting a national treasure, a living resource that was both practical and profoundly sacred. One of the most telling and frankly chilling anecdotes that highlights this extreme legal protection comes from the Roman historian Diodorus Siculus. He recounts a time when a Roman citizen, during a period of Roman occupation, a time when Romans generally felt pretty entitled, accidentally killed a cat in Egypt. Despite the efforts of the pharaoh, Ptolemy XII elites, to placate the enraged Egyptian populace, because he was trying to keep the peace with Rome and avoid a diplomatic incident, the mob, completely uncontrollable, seized the unfortunate Roman and killed him. It wasn't just a spontaneous act of violence. It was the immediate, unyielding application of a sacred law by the people themselves. The Roman, likely thinking, "It's just a cat. What's the big deal?" discovered, to his eternal regret, that it was, indeed, a very, very big deal. This wasn't a judicial ruling. It was raw, unfiltered, sacred justice, delivered by a populace for whom the cat's life was more valuable than any foreign diplomats. Now, you might be wondering, was this death penalty for killing a cat always applied? Historians still argue whether every accidental swat resulted in immediate execution, or if there were nuances, perhaps, depending on the circumstances or the social standing of the person involved. Some scholars suggest that while the law was undeniably severe, the practical application might have varied, with public outcry playing a larger role than formal court proceedings in many cases. Was it truly an eye for an eye, or more of a "you messed with our deity, now face the consequences" kind of deal? The exact interpretation remains debated, but what is clear is that the threat of such a penalty, and the very real possibility of mob justice, was enough to instill a profound caution in everyone. You probably walked around with your eyes glued to the ground, just in case a feline darted out from behind a market stall. This stringent legal framework wasn't just about punishment. It was about ensuring the safety and well-being of all cats, everywhere, at all times. It fostered an environment where cats could roam freely, secure in the knowledge that they were protected by divine decree and human law. It's hard to imagine such a level of protection today, isn't it? We have laws against animal cruelty, yes, but they don't typically come with a side of capital punishment and an angry mob. The Egyptians, however, understood that to truly protect something so vital to their spiritual and practical lives, the consequences for its harm had to be absolute. So, as you drift deeper into the ancient world, consider this. The purr of an Egyptian cat wasn't just a sound of contentment. It was the soft hum of a sacred decree, echoing through the bustling streets and silent temples. Their lives were not just cherished. They were legally enshrined, protected by the fiercest penalties a civilization could devise. It was a love so profound, it transcended mere affection and became the very definition of law. And perhaps, just perhaps, it instilled in every Egyptian a deep, abiding respect for all life, starting with the creatures that walked among them, silent, graceful, and utterly untouchable. You drift deeper into the ancient world, your mind a quiet chamber filled with the whispers of forgotten artists and the silent gazes of creatures immortalized in stone. Imagine for a moment that you are not just a casual observer, but a time-traveling art critic, strolling through the sun-drenched ateliers and shadowed tombs of ancient Egypt. What strikes you almost immediately is the sheer, undeniable presence of cats. They are everywhere, not just peeking from a corner or etched as a minor detail, but proudly, elegantly, and often comically, asserting their dominance across every conceivable artistic medium. It's as if the Egyptians had an ancient version of Instagram, and cats were their only influencers. You find yourself in a bustling scribe's workshop, the air thick with the scent of papyrus and pigments. Here, on a newly finished tomb painting, a sleek, svelte cat, its eyes almond-shaped and jewel-bright, sits regally beneath the chair of a deceased nobleman. Its tail is curled with an almost arrogant perfection, its head turned just so, as if it's silently judging the quality of the afterlife arrangements. You can almost hear it purr, a low rumble that vibrates through the millennia. This isn't just a pet, it's a cohabitant of eternity, a silent, watchful companion meant to journey with its owner into the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. These tomb paintings are a mainstream historical fact, found in countless burial sites, depicting cats in domestic bliss, often shown with collars and even earrings, clearly beloved members of the family unit, ready to continue their role as protectors and companions beyond the veil of death. Move through the bustling marketplace, past vendors hawking their wares, and you stumble upon a sculptor's studio. The dust of chiseling hangs in the air, catching the sunlight. Here, you see figures of cats in various stages of completion. Some small and delicate, meant for personal shrines or household altars. Others larger, destined for temples, their forms imbued with a powerful, almost palpable stillness. These aren't just representations. They are embodiments. You trace the smooth lines of a bronze cat, its ears perked, its posture poised, ready to spring or to simply observe. It feels cool beneath your fingertips, a testament to the enduring craftsmanship. The Egyptians believed these artistic representations weren't just decorative. They were conduits, ways to capture the essence of the animal and its associated divine powers, making them eternally present and active. Now, let your gaze wander to the very walls of temples and the intricate patterns of hieroglyphs that adorn them. You'll spot the familiar outline of a seated cat, often used as the phonetic symbol for meow, the Egyptian word for cat, which, delightfully, sounds exactly like a cat's meow. But beyond its phonetic use, the cat hieroglyph frequently appears in contexts denoting protection, grace, and divine presence. Imagine the scribes, with their reeds and ink, meticulously drawing these feline forms, not just as letters but as miniature works of art, each stroke imbued with reverence. It's a subtle nod to their omnipresence, a reminder that even in the written word, the cat was an integral part of their world. You might even stumble upon a quirky, fringe tidbit if you look closely enough. Some ostraca, which are ancient pottery shards used for sketching or notes, depict cats in hilariously human-like situations. You might see a cat playing a flute for a mouse, or a cat serving a rodent. These humorous, almost cartoonish, depictions offer a delightful glimpse into the Egyptians' affectionate, sometimes irreverent, view of their feline friends, showing that even while revered, cats were also a source of everyday amusement. Perhaps these were the ancient equivalent of viral cat videos, passed around the workshops for a chuckle. "Oh, you have to see this one." You can almost hear an ancient scribe saying, "It's a cat serving a mouse. Can you even believe it?" As you move through the dimly lit corridors of an ancient noble's home, you notice that cats aren't just confined to grand frescoes or temple walls. They are woven into the fabric of daily life, quite literally. You see exquisite cosmetic palettes shaped like crouching cats, their eyes inlaid with lapis lazuli. There are delicate amulets, carved from faience or carnelian, depicting tiny, watchful felines, worn by both adults and children for protection and good fortune. You even spot the legs of a wooden chair carved into the elegant paws of a cat, suggesting that even their furniture was blessed by feline forms. It's as if every object, every surface, was an opportunity to pay homage. They were basically the original internet cat sensations, just carved in stone or painted on papyrus, demanding to be seen. You can almost imagine an ancient Egyptian saying, "Yes, I know I have 5 cat statues, but do I have one in this exact pose? No, add it to the shopping list." A scholarly debate still swirls among Egyptologists regarding the precise meaning behind certain artistic poses of cats. Are the cats depicted with collars always specific beloved pets, or are they symbolic representations of the feline species in general, embodying Bastet's protective qualities? Does a cat shown hunting a snake always represent the triumph of good over evil? Or is it sometimes just a realistic depiction of a cat doing what cats do best, pest control, but with more flair? The nuances are subtle, but they speak to the deep layers of meaning that Egyptians wove into their art. Consider the role of cats in funerary art, beyond just sitting under chairs. They are often depicted alongside the deceased, not just as companions but as active participants in the journey to the afterlife. Some scenes show cats guarding the gates of the underworld, or aiding the deceased in symbolic hunts, ensuring a bountiful existence in the field of reeds. The artistic reverence wasn't just about making things pretty. It was about ensuring spiritual continuity and protection. You start to feel a profound respect for the artists who captured these beings with such precision and devotion. They weren't just drawing a cat. They were drawing a guardian, a divine spark, a fragment of eternity. And then there's the color. Egyptian artists used vibrant pigments derived from minerals, blues from azurite, greens from malachite, reds from iron oxides, and yellows from ochre. Imagine a sleek black cat silhouetted against a brilliant blue sky, or a striped tabby with eyes of gold, its fur rendered with an almost tactile quality. These weren't just flat images. They were designed to pop, to captivate, to ensure the cat's presence was undeniable and unforgettable. You can almost feel the softness of their painted fur, the warmth of the imagined sun on their backs. It makes you wonder if cats in ancient Egypt ever got tired of posing for all those portraits. Seriously, another one? Can't I just nap for 5 minutes without being immortalized? The artistic reverence for cats truly speaks volumes about their elevated status. From grand temple reliefs to the smallest personal amulets, from the solemnity of a tomb painting to the humor of an Astrakhan sketch, cats were not merely depicted. They were celebrated, honored, and eternalized. They were the silent witnesses, the graceful muses, and the spiritual guardians, etched into the very fabric of Egyptian civilization. As you slowly withdraw from this artistic panorama, you carry with you the undeniable impression that for the ancient Egyptians, a world without cats in their art, and thus in their lives, would have been utterly unimaginable. As you settle deeper into your imaginary journey through ancient Egypt, past the practicalities of pest control and the burgeoning worship of Bastet, you begin to perceive something more subtle, more profound, about the feline presence. It's a whisper in the dry desert air, a glint in a cat's eye, an understanding that goes beyond utility or even direct divinity. The Egyptians didn't just use cats, or even just worship them. They saw in these creatures a living tapestry of symbolic meaning, reflections of ideals they held dear. You watch as a sleek, tawny cat, perhaps an ancestor of the modern domestic shorthair, glides across the sun-baked courtyard. Its movements are fluid, each step deliberate, silent, a study in effortless grace. It stretches, long and languid, every muscle ripple visible beneath its taut fur, then sits, tail curled neatly, gaze fixed on something you can't quite see. This innate elegance, this perfect poise, wasn't lost on the ancient Egyptians. They saw in the cat a living embodiment of grace, a natural artistry that spoke to their own deep appreciation for beauty and order. Think of the way a ballet dancer holds a pose, or a master sculptor perfects a line. That's the kind of inherent aesthetic the Egyptians perceived in their feline companions. You can almost hear the soft rustle of their linen garments as they pause, captivated, watching a cat simply be. It's a quiet, humbling admiration, isn't it? A reminder that sometimes the most profound beauty is found in the simplest, most unadorned forms. And let's be honest, trying to emulate that kind of effortless elegance yourself usually results in you tripping over your own feet. Beyond mere aesthetics, cats were potent symbols of fertility and abundance, a connection that makes perfect sense when you consider their biological prowess. You've probably noticed that cats are, shall we say, rather good at making more cats. A queen cat can have multiple litters in a single year, each litter often comprising several tiny, squirming bundles of joy. In a society so deeply tied to the cycles of nature, to the annual inundation of the Nile that brought life and sustenance, anything that demonstrated such prolific reproductive capacity was seen as a blessing, a sign of nature's generosity. A household with a thriving cat population wasn't just a pest-free one. It was a home blessed with the promise of future generations, of abundant harvests, of life itself flourishing. Imagine the joy, the quiet celebration, when a beloved cat gave birth to a healthy litter. It was a miniature miracle unfolding right there in your home, a tangible representation of the life-giving forces that govern their world. It was almost like having a furry, purring good luck charm that also happened to keep the mice out of your pantry. You might even say they were the original multi-cat household trendsetters, only with a much more sacred reason for their feline family planning. And then there's the mystique. This is where the cat truly transcends its earthly form and steps into the realm of the enigmatic. As twilight deepens over the Nile, you watch as a cat's eyes, once slits in the bright sun, expand into luminous orbs that seem to capture the last vestiges of light. Their silent, padded movements through the shadows, their ability to vanish and reappear as if by magic, their nocturnal hunts under the watchful gaze of the moon. All these qualities imbued cats with an aura of mystery. They seem to navigate a world unseen by humans, a liminal space between the mundane and the divine. The Egyptians, who believed the world was permeated by subtle energies and unseen forces, would have seen these traits as evidence of a deeper connection. Cats were perceived as guardians of secrets, possessors of ancient wisdom, perhaps even conduits to the spirit world. You can almost feel the quiet hum of the night, the rustle of papyrus leaves in a gentle breeze, as a cat slips past you, a living shadow with eyes that seem to hold the universe. This sense of mystique was further amplified by their perceived independence. Unlike dogs, which are often seen as loyal and eager to please, cats maintain a certain aloofness, a self-sufficiency that speaks of a mind of their own. They choose when to bestow affection, when to demand attention, and when to simply observe from a distance. This independence was not seen as a flaw but as a sign of their inherent power, their untamed spirit, even within the confines of a human home. They were companions, yes, but also wild at heart, forever connected to the primordial energies of the desert and the hunt. This duality, domesticated yet wild, present yet mysterious, made them uniquely compelling. One mainstream historical fact that underscores this symbolic depth is how the very form of the cat became a shorthand for these qualities in Egyptian art and hieroglyphs. You see them depicted in relief carvings with the same elegant posture you observed in the living cat, their tails often curled in a distinctive loop, their eyes wide and watchful. They weren't just decorative elements. They were ideograms of grace, fertility, and protection. A cat hieroglyph, for instance, could represent the sound MIW, like a cat's meow. But it also carried the weight of all these deeper meanings, silently conveying the essence of beauty, abundance, and vigilance. It's like how a single emoji can convey a whole feeling today, but with thousands of years of sacred meaning behind it. A quirky, almost fringe tidbit about their mystique involves the fascinating way a cat's pupils change shape. In bright sunlight, they narrow to vertical slits, almost vanishing. In dim light, they expand into large, round saucers, capturing every available photon. To the Egyptians, this dramatic transformation might have seemed like a magical ability, a literal eye-opening power that allowed them to see across different realms or perceive things hidden from human sight. Perhaps it was even believed that they could see the subtle energy flows, or even the spirits of the dead, moving through the twilight hours. Imagine witnessing that daily transformation, year after year, without the benefit of modern biology. It's easy to see how one might attribute supernatural perception to such creatures. You might even find yourself wondering if your own cat is secretly judging your life choices with those ever-shifting pupils. And of course, there's still a scholarly perplexion over whether the Egyptians viewed their cats primarily as embodiments of deities, or if the deities simply adopted feline forms because of existing affection for the animals. Was Bastet revered because she was a cat goddess? Or did cats become sacred because they were associated with a powerful goddess? It's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, or perhaps a cat and kitten conundrum, that historians continue to debate, sifting through ancient texts and artistic representations for clues. Was the symbolism driving the worship, or was the worship elevating the symbolism? Either way, the outcome was the same, an unparalleled reverence for these furry companions. So, as you drift further into the quiet depths of ancient Egyptian reverence, you understand that their adoration for cats was a multifaceted gem. It wasn't just about what cats did, pest control, or even just about who they were, manifestations of a goddess. It was also about what they represented. The epitome of grace and beauty, the vibrant promise of fertility and life, and the enduring allure of the mysterious and the unseen. They were living poems, silent teachers, walking symbols that resonated deeply with the Egyptian worldview, weaving themselves into the very fabric of their spiritual and cultural identity. You realize that to truly appreciate the ancient Egyptian love for cats, you must look beyond the obvious and embrace the subtle, the symbolic, the truly mystical. Imagine, if you will, the gentle lapping of the Nile against the hull of a papyrus boat, the air thick with the scent of lotus blossoms and the distant murmur of 1,000 voices. You trudge along the dusty riverbank, your bare feet sinking slightly into the warm earth, a quiet hum of anticipation building in your chest. This isn't just any journey. It's a pilgrimage, a grand exodus of joy and devotion, all heading towards one glorious destination. Bubastis, the ancient city that pulsed as the very heart of feline adoration in Egypt. You're not alone, not by a long shot. Look around you. The roads and waterways are teeming with life, a vibrant tapestry of humanity all drawn by the gravitational pull of the annual festival of Bastet. Families from distant villages, merchants from bustling cities, priests from hallowed temples. Everyone is on the move, their faces alight with a shared excitement. It's like the biggest, most ancient road trip ever, but instead of arguing over who gets to pick the music, everyone's already singing the same joyous hymns. You see boats packed so tightly with revelers that they seem to defy the laws of physics, their decks overflowing with men and women, children and elders, all chattering, laughing, and beating small drums. Some are playing flutes, their melodies weaving through the air like invisible ribbons, guiding you forward. You might even spot a few brave souls already dancing on the very edges of their vessels, their movements a precursor to the uninhibited revelry that awaits. As your boat glides closer to Bubastis, the atmosphere shifts, crackling with an almost tangible energy. The distant murmur swells into a roar, a symphony of human voices, animal sounds, and the rhythmic pulse of music. The city itself, usually a bustling but contained hub, has burst its seams. Every street, every alleyway, every open space is transformed into a kaleidoscope of color and motion. Banners depicting Bastet in her graceful feline form flutter from every building, their vibrant hues dancing in the warm sunlight. You pass vendors hawking small, intricately carved cat amulets, shimmering linen garments, and fragrant oils, their cries adding to the delicious cacophony. The air itself feels different here, charged with a sense of collective euphoria. It's a bit like arriving at a massive, ancient music festival, but instead of headliners, you're here for the ultimate cat celebrity, Bastet herself. You join the swirling currents of people, carried along by the sheer momentum of the crowd towards the grand temple of Bastet, the very epicenter of the celebration. This isn't a somber, silent religious observance. Oh no, this is a party, a jubilant outpouring of gratitude and worship. The famed Greek historian Herodotus, who visited Egypt centuries after the festival's peak but still recorded its enduring legacy, described it with wide-eyed wonder, noting the sheer scale of the attendees and their boisterous celebrations. He even remarked on the extraordinary consumption of wine, suggesting that more was drunk during this single festival than throughout the entire rest of the year. One can only imagine the hangovers. As you finally reach the temple precinct, the sheer spectacle overwhelms your senses. The air vibrates with the continuous thrum of drums, the reedy wail of oboes, and the joyous shouts of thousands. People are dancing, twirling in circles, their bodies swaying with an uninhibited abandon. Women shake sistra, their metallic rattles creating a mesmerizing, rhythmic clatter that seems to cleanse the very air. You see men and women linking arms, forming impromptu dance circles, their laughter echoing off the temple walls. It's a release, a joyous catharsis after a year of hard work and daily struggles. For these precious days, all social distinctions seem to melt away, everyone united in their love for the benevolent goddess. Offerings are everywhere. Piles of fresh bread, baskets overflowing with ripe fruits, and fragrant bouquets of flowers are laid at makeshift altars and carried into the temple's inner sanctum. But the most prominent offerings, of course, are for the cats. You see exquisitely crafted bronze cat figurines, some small enough to fit in your palm, others towering effigies, being presented to the priests. Many pilgrims carry small, mummified cats, lovingly wrapped in linen bandages, ready to be interred in the vast cat necropolises that surround Bubastis. It's a touching testament to the profound bond between humans and their feline companions, a final gesture of respect and hope for their journey into the afterlife. You might even spot a live cat, sleek and regal, perched serenely on someone's shoulder, seemingly soaking in the collective adoration with a knowing, almost smug expression. They truly are the guests of honor. The festival continues day and night, a whirlwind of feasting and merriment. You partake in communal meals, sharing food and drink with strangers who quickly become friends in the shared spirit of devotion. The wine flows freely, indeed, just as Herodotus observed, and the atmosphere becomes increasingly uninhibited. People sing bawdy songs, tell jokes, and engage in playful banter. There's a wonderful sense of liberation, a temporary shedding of societal norms, all under the watchful, benevolent gaze of Bastet. It's a time when you can truly let your hair down, or in this case, perhaps let your cat out of the bag, so to speak. The temple itself is a hive of activity. Priests and priestesses, adorned in their ceremonial robes, move through the crowds, performing rituals and accepting offerings. You might catch a glimpse of sacred cats, specially bred and cared for within the temple precincts, being paraded through the crowds, their very presence a blessing. These aren't just pets. They are living manifestations of the goddess, treated with the utmost reverence. The sight of a temple cat, sleek and well-fed, moving with an almost supernatural grace, inspires gasps of awe and hushed whispers of devotion. It's a reminder that for the Egyptians, the divine wasn't just in the heavens. It walked among them, often on four paws. One of the more quirky aspects, though perhaps not for the Egyptians, was the sheer volume of cat mummies brought to Bubastis for burial. Archaeologists have uncovered vast cat cemeteries, containing hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of mummified felines, some interred in elaborate sarcophagi, others simply wrapped and placed in communal pits. It truly underscores the scale of their affection and the religious significance of these creatures. Historians still argue whether the practice of mass cat mummification was driven purely by religious zeal or also by a booming industry that catered to the pilgrim's need for a sacred offering. Was it heartfelt devotion, or was there a cat mummy cartel at play? Probably a bit of both, honestly. As the festival reaches its climax, the air becomes charged with an almost ecstatic energy. The dancing grows more frenzied, the music more intoxicating. You feel a profound connection to the people around you, a sense of belonging to something ancient and powerful. This festival isn't just a celebration of Bastet. It's a celebration of life, of fertility, of protection, and of the unique, inexplicable bond between humans and the creatures they hold sacred. It's a testament to the fact that even thousands of years ago, people knew how to throw a really good party, especially when cats were involved. As the sun begins its slow descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, a sense of peaceful exhaustion settles over the city. The revelry doesn't stop, but it softens, becoming a gentle hum. You find a quiet spot near the river, watching the moon rise, its silver light reflecting on the water. The sounds of the festival still carry on the breeze, a lullaby of joy and devotion. You close your eyes, the rhythmic beat of a distant drum lulling you into a calm state. You've witnessed something truly extraordinary, a testament to a love affair between a people and their feline companions that transcended the practical and soared into the divine. It's a love story etched into the very stones of Bubastis, echoing through the millennia, quiet now, but always present. You drift now, deeper into the heart of ancient Egyptian reverence for cats, past the bustling markets and the quiet homes, toward something more organized. Imagine, if you will, the serene hush that falls as you step past the outer walls of a grand temple dedicated to Bastet. The air here feels different, thick with the scent of sacred oils and, yes, a faint, undeniable whiff of catnip. Perhaps, you're not just looking at a place of worship. You're entering what might be considered the world's first, and certainly most opulent, feline breeding facility. Because, let's be honest, If you need millions upon millions of mummified cats to offer to the gods, you can't just rely on stray alley cats or the occasional pampered house pet. That would be like trying to supply the world's coffee shops with beans from your Aunt Mildred's single backyard plant. You need scale. You need dedication. And the ancient Egyptians, masters of organization and devotion, had both in spades. Here, within the temple precincts, you find a network of quiet courtyards and sun-drenched chambers, meticulously designed not for humans, but for their divine feline residents. This isn't just a pen. It's a 5-star cat resort. If 5 stars included daily spiritual blessings and the promise of eternal glory, you see priests and temple attendants, not in their usual solemn robes, but in practical, soft linens, moving with a gentle reverence, their hands skilled in the art of cat care. They are the sacred breeders, the guardians of the divine lineage. They weren't just letting cats do their thing, you understand. Oh no, this was a highly controlled environment. Think less feral colony and more elite kennel club, but with much, much higher stakes. The goal was to ensure a constant, healthy supply of felines suitable for various religious purposes. Some would live out their lives as temple cats, revered and pampered, perhaps even believed to be living vessels for Bastet herself. You can almost hear them purring, a low rumble echoing through the peaceful stone corridors, as if confirming their own divine importance. Others, however, had a more direct path to the afterlife. The sheer scale of this operation is, frankly, mind-boggling. Mainstream historical fact alert: archaeologists have unearthed catacombs containing millions of mummified cats, particularly at sites like Bastet, the cult center of Bastet, and Saqqara. We're talking about an unimaginable number of felines, far exceeding what could ever be gathered from domestic pets. This mountain of mummified magas is perhaps the strongest evidence that the Egyptians engaged in dedicated, large-scale breeding programs. It wasn't just a passion. It was an industry, albeit one deeply rooted in faith. Imagine the logistics, right? Pharaoh needs another 50,000 mummified kittens by next Tuesday. Get the sacred cataras purring. You watch as an attendant gently strokes a sleek, tawny cat, its eyes half closed in bliss. These aren't just any cats. They are the chosen ones. While we don't have definitive records of specific breeds in the modern sense, it's highly probable that the Egyptians selectively bred for traits they considered sacred or aesthetically pleasing. Perhaps a certain coat color, a particular markings around the eyes reminiscent of Bastet's iconography, or a calm, dignified demeanor. Quirky tidbit: some historians suggest that the cats most favored for these sacred roles bore a striking resemblance to the modern Egyptian Mau breed, known for its distinctive spotted coat and elegant build. Imagine a feline beauty pageant. But instead of sashes, the winners got prime real estate in the temple and a guaranteed spot in the afterlife. Tough competition, I'm sure. The care these cats received was exceptional. They were fed the finest fish and milk, probably better than what many common Egyptians ate. Their living quarters were clean, spacious, and protected from the elements. Priests and dedicated cat keepers, known as Bastet or House of Bastet attendants, were responsible for their welfare. They performed rituals to bless the cats, ensuring their divine connection remained strong. You might even catch a glimpse of a priest gently anointing a particularly regal-looking feline with fragrant oils, as if preparing it for a royal audience, which, in a way, they were. This dedicated breeding was crucial for several reasons. Firstly, it ensured a constant supply of suitable living offerings for the temple, cats that embodied Bastet's spirit and brought her blessings to the sacred space. Secondly, and perhaps more significantly for the general populace, it provided the vast numbers of cats needed for mummification. Pilgrims visiting temples, especially during grand festivals like the one at Bastet, would often purchase a mummified cat as a votive offering to Bastet. It was a tangible expression of their devotion, a prayer solidified in linen-wrapped feline form. Think of it like buying a candle at a modern church, but the candle is an intricately preserved animal that you then offer to a goddess. A little more commitment involved, perhaps. The economic implications of this system were considerable. The sale of mummified cats would have generated significant revenue for the temples, funding their upkeep, the salaries of the priests, and the continued care of the living sacred cats. It was a self-sustaining ecosystem of faith and feline adoration. You can almost hear the ancient equivalent of a sales pitch. Get your genuine, temple-bred, Bastet-blessed mummified cat here, guaranteed to bring good fortune and ward off evil spirits. Limited time offer. Okay, maybe not that aggressive, but you get the idea. There's a fascinating ethical question here, too, from a modern perspective. Were these cats bred solely for sacrifice? Or was it also about preserving a sacred lineage? Scholarly debate alert. Historians still debate whether these breeding operations were primarily for the purpose of providing mummified offerings, or if there was also a focus on maintaining distinct, sacred breeds of cats for the temples themselves, perhaps as living embodiments of Bastet. It's a fine line, isn't it? Were they raised as cherished pets destined for a sacred purpose, or as livestock for divine consumption? The Egyptians, in their profound reverence, likely saw no contradiction. For them, death in service of the gods, especially as a direct offering, was not an end, but a glorious transition. You can almost feel the soft vibrations of their purrs through the ancient stones, a testament to the immense care and devotion poured into these sacred cateras. The air is still, save for the occasional soft meow or the rustle of a priest's robe. This was not a place of cruelty, but of profound respect, where every feline life, from birth to its ultimate sacred purpose, was meticulously guided by human hands, all in service of their beloved cat goddess. It's a quiet, comforting hum, a lullaby of ancient adoration, reminding you that even in the most practical aspects of their faith, the Egyptians never lost sight of the divine spark they saw in their beloved felines. You stand at the precipice of a truly remarkable understanding. For all the whispers of Bastet, the sacred mummies, and the profound grief you've already encountered, the story of why ancient Egyptians adored their cats so much doesn't end with their civilization's decline. Oh no, my friend, what you've been tracing through the sands of time isn't just a fascinating historical footnote. It's the very foundation of the enduring, global relationship between humans and felines. You see, the unique Egyptian bond with cats didn't merely fade into hieroglyphic obscurity. It rippled outwards, shaping the cultural and historical trajectory of these enigmatic creatures for millennia to come. Imagine, if you will, the bustling ports of Alexandria, the sun-drenched docks where vessels laden with exotic goods prepared for journeys across the Mediterranean. It wasn't just papyrus scrolls, fine linen, or glittering gold that departed these shores. Tucked away in the holds, or perhaps curled up on a merchant's lap, were the ultimate cultural ambassadors, Egyptian cats. They were the world's first furry diplomats, quietly colonizing new lands with their purrs and their unparalleled pest control skills. When you consider the vast network of trade routes that connected Egypt to the wider world, from the Roman Empire to the farthest reaches of India, you realize that these tiny, whiskered creatures weren't just hitching rides. They were being intentionally, if sometimes subtly, introduced into new societies. This wasn't just a happy accident. It was a deliberate, slow-motion cultural export, one purr at a time. The Romans, ever pragmatic, were among the first to truly embrace the Egyptian cat on a grand scale outside of its homeland. Initially, they valued cats for the same reasons the early Egyptians did: their unparalleled ability to keep granaries free of rodents. After all, a hungry army is a grumpy army, and nobody wants a bunch of mice gnawing through their rations. But, as often happens with these things, utility quickly blossomed into affection. You can almost picture a stern Roman centurion, after a long day of conquering, finally relaxing in his villa, only for a sleek feline to jump onto his lap, demanding attention. Suddenly, the efficient little hunter becomes a cherished companion, a source of quiet comfort in a chaotic world. It's hard to stay grumpy when a cat is kneading your tunic, isn't it? This widespread adoption by the Romans, a truly mainstream historical fact, served as a crucial bridge, carrying the domesticated cat's journey further into Europe, eventually reaching the cold, damp shores of Britain and beyond. Yet, the journey of the cat wasn't always a smooth, sun-drenched promenade across the Roman Empire. While Egypt held them in near-divine reverence, later periods, particularly in medieval Europe, saw a dramatic shift in perception. Here, the very independence and nocturnal habits that Egyptians admired became sources of suspicion and fear. Cats, particularly black ones, were often associated with witchcraft and dark magic, leading to periods of widespread persecution. It's a stark, almost heartbreaking contrast to the gilded cages and temple offerings you've imagined in ancient Egypt. And it makes you wonder, how did the cat, despite being reviled and hunted in some eras, manage to survive and eventually regain its beloved status? Historians still debate the extent to which the suppression of cats in medieval Europe contributed to outbreaks like the Black Death, given their crucial role in rodent control. Perhaps the cat's inherent usefulness, a legacy of its Egyptian origins, was too powerful to ever truly be extinguished. But beyond their practical utility, the enduring legacy of Egyptian adoration lies in the very essence of how we perceive cats today. The traits Egyptians admired, their grace, their inscrutable wisdom, their mysterious independence, their innate ability to hunt with silent precision, became universally recognized characteristics. When you see a sleek cat stalking a toy mouse, or simply lounging with an air of supreme indifference, you're witnessing the echoes of a 5,000-year-old appreciation. They've always been the cool cats of the animal kingdom, haven't they? It's as if their ancient Egyptian publicists did such a good job that their brand image has remained consistently stellar through millennia, even through those awkward medieval phases. And speaking of echoes, just glance at your phone. Go on, I dare you. What do you see? Cat videos, cat memes, endless digital odes to the feline form. Is it so different from the ancient Egyptian practice of depicting cats on every available surface, from tomb walls to everyday pottery? In a very real sense, the internet, with its insatiable appetite for cat content, is merely channeling our collective inner ancient Egyptian. The sheer number of cats kept as pets globally today, estimated to be in the hundreds of millions, is a direct testament to that enduring affection. Even the playful term cat lady, often used with a wink and a nod, feels like a modern, slightly less formal homage to the devout priestesses of Bastet. This enduring legacy isn't just cultural, it's also biological. Take, for instance, the Egyptian Mau, a breed whose very name speaks of its origins. Believed to be a direct descendant of the ancient Egyptian cats, the Mau possesses a distinctive spotted coat and intelligent green eyes that eerily resemble the cats depicted in ancient artworks. It's like looking at a living, breathing artifact. And it's not just the Mau. Genetic studies of domestic cats around the world often trace their lineage back to the Near East and, crucially, highlight the significant role of the Egyptian population in their global dispersal. A quirky tidbit. Some theories suggest that certain distinctive cat coat patterns or eye colors, common in modern breeds, may have been selectively favored or emerged more prominently due to the specific breeding practices and environmental pressures within ancient Egypt. For instance, the striking spotted coat of the Egyptian Mau, believed to be directly descended from ancient Egyptian cats, is a unique genetic marker that might have been intentionally or unintentionally preserved, giving us a visual link straight back to those ancient temple cats. Perhaps the most profound influence of the Egyptian bond was the very concept of the pet cat as we understand it. Before Egypt, animals were primarily livestock or working beasts. They had a function, a purpose that served human survival or labor. But the Egyptians elevated the cat beyond mere utility. They saw them as family members, as sources of comfort, joy, and even spiritual solace. This revolutionary idea that an animal could be cherished simply for its companionship, its purr, its quiet presence, was born in the Nile Valley. It was a radical departure from previous human-animal relationships, laying the groundwork for the global phenomenon of pet ownership. You didn't just have a cat, you had a friend who happened to have whiskers and an opinion about everything. The artistic and literary legacy is equally vast. From children's books to high fantasy, from classical paintings to modern animation, cats permeate our cultural landscape. They are symbols of mystery, wisdom, independence, sensuality, and even mischievousness. Think of the Cheshire Cat or the feline companions of witches and wizards in countless tales. Each portrayal, whether positive or negative, draws on a deep, almost archetypal understanding of the cat's nature, an understanding first codified and celebrated by the ancient Egyptians. Their reverence imprinted an indelible image of the cat onto the collective human psyche, ensuring its place in our stories and imaginations forever. Ultimately, the ancient Egyptian adoration of cats was not a cul-de-sac of history, a fascinating dead end. It was, rather, a powerful launchpad that propelled the domestic cat from a regional pest controller to a global icon. No other animal, perhaps with the exception of the dog, has had such a profound, continuous, and globally recognized impact on human culture, and much of that impact stems directly from its elevated status in ancient Egypt. They were the original animal influencers long before Instagram. They had better PR than any other creature, and it was all thanks to their ancient Egyptian agents. So, as you drift towards sleep, remember this. The trajectory of the cat, from the humble fields of early Egyptian farmers to the hallowed halls of Bastet's temples, and then across oceans and centuries to your very own sofa, is a testament to an unparalleled, enduring love affair. The paw prints of ancient Egypt are everywhere, if you only look closely enough. As the soft glow of the ancient sun dips below the desert horizon, and the last whispers of the market stalls fade into the quiet night, you find yourself drifting back to the heart of what makes this story so uniquely captivating. We've journeyed through the practical beginnings, the divine ascensions, and the profound griefs, but now, as our exploration winds down, we arrive at the very core of it all. The timeless, unparalleled adoration ancient Egyptians held for their beloved felines. You see, it wasn't just a fleeting fancy, a passing trend like, say, the sudden surge in popularity for tiny, impractical hats in the Middle Kingdom. No, this was a deep, pervasive, and utterly fundamental aspect of their civilization. Imagine a love so profound that it seeped into every crack and crevice of daily existence, from the humblest mud brick dwelling to the grandest temple complex. It wasn't a love reserved for the elite or confined to a specific cult. It was a societal embrace, a collective emanating from the very soul of Egypt. Think about it. From the moment those first wild cats, the Felis libica, padded cautiously out of the reeds and into the early agricultural settlements, a transformation began. What started as a mutually beneficial arrangement, a cat gets dinner, a farmer keeps his grain slowly, almost imperceptibly, blossomed into something far more intricate. It was more than just a working relationship. It was a partnership of souls. These weren't just mousers. They were family. They weren't just pets. They were living embodiments of grace and protection. They weren't just animals. They were, in a very real sense, part of the divine tapestry that wove through every aspect of Egyptian life. You can almost feel the warmth of a sleek, striped form curled on a papyrus mat beside you, its low rumble vibrating through the floor. This wasn't a fleeting affection, like your fleeting crush on that one pop star from your youth who now sells artisanal cheese. This was a love that endured for millennia. For over 3,000 years, the cat held a place of honor, reverence, and deep personal affection in Egypt. That's longer than the entire history of Christianity, just to put it into perspective. It's a testament to the enduring power of a bond forged in utility and refined by spiritual belief. Consider the sheer ubiquity of their presence. You couldn't walk through an Egyptian home, gaze upon a tomb painting, or decipher a hieroglyph without encountering the elegant form of a cat. They were depicted in every conceivable pose. Stalking prey, nursing kittens, sitting regally under chairs, even wearing tiny earrings in some particularly fancy depictions. It's like they were the ultimate ancient Egyptian influencers, always camera-ready, always embodying the perfect blend of domesticity and wild mystique. This constant visual presence wasn't just artistic preference. It was a reflection of their omnipresent spiritual and emotional significance. They were, quite literally, etched into the very fabric of Egyptian identity. The elevation of Bastet, the goddess who began as a lioness but evolved into the benevolent, playful feline deity we know, perfectly encapsulates this journey. Her popularity soared, especially during the late period, solidifying the cat's status from useful companion to sacred icon. When you attended the grand festivals at Bastet, you weren't just celebrating a goddess, you were celebrating cats. The joyous, often raucous, Pilgrimages to her temple were a collective outpouring of gratitude and affection for these creatures. People would bring mummified cats as offerings, not out of sacrifice, but out of devotion, hoping to gain favor from Bastet and perhaps ensure their own beloved feline companions would have a smooth journey to the afterlife. It was, in essence, the ancient world's biggest cat convention, only with more sacred beer and fewer cat-themed sweaters. The meticulous mummification process, the profound grief exhibited at their passing, shaving eyebrows, wailing, fasting, these weren't mere rituals. These were genuine expressions of loss. When a cat died in an Egyptian household, it wasn't just a pet that passed. It was a family member, a guardian, a piece of the divine made manifest. The lengths they went to ensure their feline friends had a safe passage to the afterlife, often burying them with small bowls of milk or even mummified mice for sustenance, speaks volumes about the depth of their belief and affection. It wasn't just about preserving the body. It was about honoring the soul and ensuring continued companionship, even beyond the veil. And then there were the laws. Imagine living in a society where accidentally killing a cat could result in the death penalty. Not just a fine, not just a slap on the wrist, but the ultimate consequence. This isn't just respect. This is legal reverence. Historians still debate whether this extreme penalty was strictly enforced in every single instance, or if it served more as a powerful deterrent. But the very existence of such a law underscores the astonishing value placed on feline life. It demonstrates that the protection of cats wasn't just a cultural norm. It was a matter of state importance, a sacred trust. This level of legal protection for an animal is virtually unheard of in the ancient world, setting Egypt apart in its unique relationship with these creatures. The ancient Egyptians, in their profound wisdom, recognized something in cats that transcends mere utility or even beauty. They saw in them a reflection of desirable qualities: independence, stealth, grace, fertility, and a quiet, watchful power. A mainstream historical fact that often surprises people is that the domestic cat, Felis catus, is largely believed to have originated from the Egyptian cat population, spreading across the globe from this ancient epicenter of feline adoration. So, every time your cat ignores your calls, but then mysteriously appears when you open a bag of treats, you're witnessing an echo of that ancient Egyptian spirit, a legacy of charming indifference and strategic affection. A quirky tidbit that further illustrates their devotion is the discovery of massive cat cemeteries, like the one at Beni Hassan, where thousands upon thousands of meticulously mummified cats have been unearthed. One particular find included a small, perfectly preserved cat wearing a delicate bronze collar, indicating not just mummification for religious purposes, but for individual, cherished pets. It's a poignant detail that cuts through the millennia, reminding us of the individual bonds that blossomed in those ancient homes. This unparalleled adoration wasn't just a quirky historical footnote. It profoundly shaped Egyptian society and culture. It influenced their art, their religion, their laws, and even their very worldview. It was a love that wasn't just tolerated, but celebrated, cultivated, and interwoven into the very fabric of their identity. And in turn, this Egyptian love for cats has echoed through time, influencing our own perceptions and affections for these enigmatic creatures. We may not worship Bastet today, or mummify our beloved whiskered friends, though, let's be honest, some of us might be tempted on a particularly bad day. But the deep, abiding affection many of us feel for cats today has a direct lineage back to the sun-drenched banks of the Nile. So, as you drift deeper into the quiet, consider the enduring legacy of this ancient affection. It wasn't just practical or spiritual or even purely emotional. It was a synergistic blend of all these things, creating a bond so potent and so unique that it remains a marvel even thousands of years later. The ancient Egyptians didn't just like cats. They truly, deeply, and unequivocally adored them. And in doing so, they left us a timeless testament to a love that continues to purr softly through the annals of history, a gentle reminder of the profound connections that can form between humanity and the animal kingdom. Now, as the last echoes of this ancient tale begin to fade, allow your mind to gently release the details, letting them soften and blur like the edges of a dream. Feel the quiet settle around you, a peaceful stillness that invites your thoughts to slow, your breath to deepen. Imagine the soft, rhythmic purr of a contented cat, a sound that has resonated through millennia, a timeless lullaby. Let yourself sink into the comfort of this moment, knowing that the stories of old, like the quiet strength of those ancient felines, are always there, waiting patiently to be discovered again when the new day dawns. Allow the warmth of the sun-drenched desert, the cool touch of the Nile's breeze, and the gentle presence of those beloved ancient cats to wrap around you, a comforting blanket woven from history and affection. Release any lingering thoughts, any small worries, and simply be here, now in this moment of quiet peace. Let your mind become a still pool, reflecting only the soft moonlight, and feel the gentle pull towards slumber, a tranquil descent into the deepest, most restorative rest. All the tales have been told for now, and the world of waking can wait until morning light.